Team? Two enemies and a lot of secrets. Today is the day of the big baseball match. The young wants to prove he is the best, but Jungkook is standing in his way. Between locker room pranks and a friend who wants more than just a job, things are getting messy. I'm standing in the front row, hoping they don't fight. Will my husband win the game? Or will a secret reveal change our lives forever? Let's find out. The sun was setting, casting long, orange shadows across the empty field as the team trudged toward the locker rooms. The practice had been brutal. Taehyung's pitches were like lightning, and Jungkook's swings were fueled by pure aggressive spite. Neither had backed down, and the air between them was thick with unspoken threats. Inside the locker room, the sound of slamming metal lockers and running showers filled the space. Taehyung was pulling off his grass-stained jersey when Jungkook walked by, intentionally bumping his shoulder hard. "Jungkook, nice arm. Kim, too bad it won't save you when you realize you're just a guest on my team." Taehyung spun around, his eyes cold and sharp. He stepped into Jungkook's space, not flinching for a second. "Taehyung, your team? I don't see your name on the scoreboard, Jian. I see a captain who's more interested in bullying girls in the bleachers than actually hitting a curveball." Jungkook, dropping his bag with a heavy thud. "Don't talk to me about Circe. We all know why she's here. She's obsessed with the scholar who thinks he's too good for the rest of us. Does your wife know how much time you spend with the boss's daughter?" Taehyung's jaw tightened, his fists clenching at his sides. The mention of Y or N in the same breath as Jungkook's mockery was the breaking point. "Taehyung, keep my wife's name out of your mouth. You don't know anything about her, and you certainly don't know anything about me." "Jungkook, I know enough. I know she's too good for a stuck-up jerk like you. Maybe that's why she likes hanging out at the arcade with me more than sitting at home with your silent treatment." Taehyung lunged forward, grabbing Jungkook by the collar of his shirt. Jungkook didn't move away. He smirked, his eyes challenging Taehyung to take the first swing. "Taehyung, you stay away from her. You hear me? One more word about Y or N and I'll— Enough." A thunderous voice echoed through the locker room. Both men jumped back as Coach Kim Namjoon slammed his clipboard against a wooden bench. The rest of the players went dead silent, frozen in mid-motion. "Coach Namjoon, I don't care who started it, and I don't care whose ego is bruised. You two are wearing the same colors. If I see this kind of garbage on my field again, you're both off the roster. Is that clear?" Neither Taehyung nor Jungkook spoke, their glares still locked on each other. "Coach Namjoon, I said, is that clear?" Taehyung and Jungkook, simultaneously, through gritted teeth. "Yes, coach." "Coach Namjoon, good. Now listen up, everyone. We don't have time for middle school drama. We have an important match against Seoul National University in 2 days. They're the defending champions, and they play dirty. If you two can't find a way to work together, they'll chew us up and spit us out." He looked directly at Taehyung and then at Jungkook. "Coach Namjoon, get your heads in the game, or get out of my locker room. Practice tomorrow at 5 a.m. Don't be late." He turned on his heel and walked out, leaving the room in a heavy, suffocating silence. Taehyung grabbed his bag, threw it over his shoulder, and walked out without a word, his heart still racing with fury. The apartment was quiet, the only sound being the rhythmic thud-thud-thud of Taehyung's fist hitting a stress ball as he sat on the edge of the bed. He was still in his practice sweats, the scent of the field grass, dirt, and sweat clinging to him. His jaw was set so tight it looked like marble. Y or N walked in softly, carrying a bowl of warm water and a small towel. She sat on the floor between his knees, looking up at him with wide, worried eyes. "YN Tae, you've been staring at that wall for 20 minutes. Please, talk to me. Was practice that bad?" Taehyung finally looked down at her, his expression softening for a fraction of a second before the memory of the locker room flashed in his mind. He let out a sharp, frustrated breath. "Taehyung, he's a nightmare. Y or N, Jungkook isn't just a rival. He's a distraction. He spent half the time mocking the people in the stands and the other half trying to get under my skin by mentioning things he has no business knowing." YN's heart skipped a beat. She began to gently dab the damp towel over a scrape on his forearm. "YN, what things? Did he say something about the team?" "Taehyung, he mentioned the arcade. He mentioned you. He acts like he knows you better than I do just because you two shared one afternoon of fun while I was working." Y or N flinched, her fingers trembling slightly. She knew this was coming. "YN, he's just trying to provoke you. Tae, he's a provocateur. He knows that mentioning me is the fastest way to make you lose your focus. Don't let him win. You're the better player, even Coach Namjoon thinks so. Taehyung, it's not about who's better anymore. We have a match against Seoul National in 2 days. They're the champions. If we play like we did today, fighting each other more than the ball, we're going to be humiliated. He reached down, taking the towel from her hands and tossing it aside so he could pull her up to sit beside him. He wrapped an arm around her shoulder, pulling her close into his side. Taehyung, I'm sorry I'm so high-strung. I wanted this to be a fresh start, a good job, a good team, a happy home. But it feels like every time I take a step forward, Jungkook is there to trip me. Then stop looking at his feet and start looking at the goal. You're Kim Taehyung. You're a father of 2, a top student, and an executive now. He's just a boy with a bat. Don't let him take your peace away. Taehyung leaned his head against hers, closing his eyes. The warmth of her presence was the only thing keeping his temper from boiling over again. Taehyung, I'll try, but if he says one more word about you on that field, I can't promise the coach won't kick me off the team for good. Then I'll just have to make sure I'm there to keep you both in line. I'll be in the front row for the match, Tae. I'm your real cheerleader, not anyone else. Taehyung smiled faintly, a real one this time, as he kissed her temple. But deep down, they both knew that Seoul National wasn't the only battle they had to worry about in 48 hours. The morning of the final pre-game practice was quiet and cold. Taehyung woke up at 4:30 a.m., the pale blue light of dawn barely filtering through the curtains. He turned to see Y still fast asleep, her face peaceful. He couldn't resist leaning over to pull her into a soft, lingering cuddle, inhaling her scent to steady his nerves for the day ahead. Mumbling sleepily, Tae, already? Taehyung, go back to sleep, baby. I have to get to the field early. I'll see you at breakfast. He kissed her forehead one last time, grabbed his gear, and headed out into the crisp morning air. When Taehyung reached the Archive University locker room, it was empty and silent. He headed toward his locker to change, but as he pulled the metal handle, it didn't budge. He frowned, noticing a thick, industrial-grade chain wrapped around the vents, secured with a heavy-duty padlock. Taped to the center of the locker was a bright neon sticky note. Sorry, scholar. I thought a genius like you would prefer studying today. I lost the key in the middle of the pitcher's mound. Happy hunting, JK. Taehyung stared at the note, his jaw tightening. He looked at the clock. Practice started in 15 minutes. If he wasn't on the field in uniform, Coach Namjoon would bench him for the big match against Seoul National. Instead of panicking or running to the field to dig through the dirt, Taehyung calmly walked over to the janitor's closet at the end of the hall. He returned a minute later carrying a pair of heavy-duty bolt cutters. Snap! The chain hit the floor with a loud clang. Taehyung opened his locker, changed into his jersey, and walked out onto the field exactly at 5 o'clock a.m. Jungkook was already on the grass, tossing a ball into his glove with a satisfied smirk, waiting to see Taehyung arrive late and flustered in his civilian clothes. His smile vanished the moment he saw Taehyung walking toward the dugout, fully dressed and looking completely unbothered. Jungkook, wait, how? I used the strongest chain from the equipment room. Taehyung walked straight up to Jungkook. He didn't look angry, he looked bored. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the crumpled neon note, pressing it firmly against Jungkook's chest. Taehyung, next time, try a password-protected digital lock, Jion. Maybe that would actually challenge a scholar. Bolt cutters took me 10 seconds. Jungkook, you broke the team's equipment? Coach is going to love that. Taehyung, I'll pay for the chain out of my first paycheck from Klein Enterprises. Now, are we here to play hide and seek, or are we going to practice for the champions? Because if you spend the match against Seoul National pulling stunts like this, they're going to walk all over us. Coach Namjoon walked onto the field, blowing his whistlers. Namjoon, Jion, Kim, quit gossiping and get to the stations. We have 31 hours until the first pitch. Let's move. Taehyung jogged to the mound, leaving a stunned Jungkook standing in the grass. Jungkook looked at the note in his hand and then at Taehyung's retreating back. Jungkook, muttering to himself, okay, maybe the nerd has some teeth after all. The practice that followed was intense. For the first time, the two of them didn't just fight, they competed. Taehyung's pitches were faster than ever, and Jungkook's hitting was pinpoint accurate. They were still rivals, but the pressure of the upcoming match was finally starting to turn their friction into fire. After classes, Y was walking back home alone. The afternoon sun was beginning to dip, casting long shadows across the pavement. Suddenly, a familiar annoying whistle caught her attention. She turned toward a large oak tree to see Jungkook leaning against it, casually tossing a baseball up and down. Jungkook, well, look who it is. Does the scholar know you're wandering around the lion's den alone today? Arcade girl. YN marched right up to him, her hands on her hips, unimpressed. YN, actually, Jeon Jungkook, I'm the one who should be asking why you aren't at the gym. Don't you have a match tomorrow? Or are you planning on losing to Seoul National? Jungkook, smirking. Losing isn't in my vocabulary. I was just taking a break from looking at your husband's stiff face. Seriously, does he ever relax? He plays baseball like he's solving a calculus equation. Y or N, stop it. He's focused. And you should be too. If you pull any of your servant pranks tomorrow, I will go to your uni and tell your coach that you were the one who broke the equipment locker. Jungkook, mock offended. Ouch. You're becoming quite the little dictator, aren't you? Fine, I'll play nice with the nerd. Y or N relaxed her shoulders slightly, but then she remembered the tension from the field. YN, actually, I wanted to ask you, why were you always so mean to Circe 𝐒𝐞𝐿? Tae said you even mocked him yesterday when she was cheering. She was just trying to support the team. Jungkook's smirk instantly turned into a dark, mocking laugh. He caught the baseball midair and squeezed it tight. Jungkook, Circe 𝐒𝐿? Support? That's the funniest thing I've heard all week. YN, what's so funny? She's a student and a friend of Taehyung. She's even the one who helped him get his job at 𝐒𝐿 Enterprises. Jungkook, of course she did. It's easy to give away jobs when your father owns the building. YN, wait, what did you just say? Jungkook, you heard me. YN, you knew Circe is the 𝐒𝐿 heir. Tae told me no one in the university knows her real identity. He said she keeps it a secret to live a normal life. Jungkook stepped closer, his voice dropping to a low, conspiratorial whisper. A sharp, knowing glint shone in his eyes. Jungkook, only I know who Circe 𝐒𝐿 really is. He said it with a mysterious smirk that made YN's skin crawl. YN, frowning. What do you mean by that? Jungkook didn't answer. Instead, he let out a long, exaggerated yawn. Jungkook, whatever. I have to go see your husband's face again at practice. Living the dream, right? He pushed off the tree and started walking away toward the arcade campus, tossing the ball back into the air without looking back. Jungkook, see you at the match. Mrs. Jerk. YN stood alone on the road, her mind racing. Does Jungkook knew something that neither she nor Taehyung had realized? That night, the apartment was bathed in the soft, warm glow of the bedside lamp. The chaotic energy of the university and the stress of the upcoming match felt miles away. Taehyung was sitting up against the headboard, and YN was tucked into his side, her head resting on his chest. Taehyung was tracing mindless patterns on her arm, his breathing steady and calm. Taehyung, you've been quiet tonight, baby. Still nervous about the match? I promise I'll be careful. No more locker room brawls. YN bit her lip, looking up at his sharp jawline. She had been debating whether to tell him about her encounter with Jungkook all evening. YN, Tae, I saw Jungkook on the road after my classes today. We talked for a bit. Taehyung's hand stilled on her arm. He didn't pull away, but she felt his muscles tense. Taehyung, and what did the brat have to say this time? YN, he mentioned Circe. Tae, he knows she's the heir to 𝐒𝐿 Enterprises. He said it's easy to give away jobs when your father owns the building. Taehyung frowned, his eyes narrowing as he stared at the far wall, deep in thought. Suddenly, a memory from the heated locker room confrontation flashed in his mind. He remembered Jungkook's mocking voice and the sneer on his face. Taehyung, wait, yesterday in the locker room, he called her my boss's daughter. I was so angry because he started talking about you in the arcade. I didn't even process what he said about her. I thought he was just talking nonsense to get under my skin. YN, Tae, doesn't that worry you? Jungkook said he's the only one who knows the truth. Why would she hide it from you but let him know? It feels like she's calculating something. I have this bad feeling about her. I'm scared she's using this job to keep you close to her. Taehyung looked down at YN. Seeing the genuine fear and flickering jealousy in her eyes, he let out a soft sigh and pulled her closer, kissing the top of her head. Taehyung, hey, look at me. He waited until she met his eyes. Taehyung, you're just thinking negatively because Jungkook is a master at twisting things. He's a provocateur. YN, he wants you to doubt me, and he wants me to doubt my friends. Circe is a good, kind-hearted girl. She saw me struggling with that awful part-time job and she used her position to help us. That's not a conspiracy, that's just being a good friend. YN, but what if? Taehyung, no what ifs. She's the reason I can be home early to cuddle with you like this. She's the reason we have a stable future for the babies. Don't let Jungkook's mind games ruin that, okay? YRN wanted to argue, to tell him that Jungkook's mysterious smirk felt like a warning she couldn't ignore, but seeing the tired, hopeful look in Taehyung's eyes, she couldn't bring herself to ruin his peace. YN, softly okay, maybe I'm just overthinking. Taehyung, exactly. Now, no more talk about rivals or heiresses. I need my wife's support for tomorrow, not her worries. He turned off the lamp, pulling the duvet over them both, but while Taehyung eventually fell into a deep sleep, YRN stayed awake for a long time, staring into the darkness and wondering why the kind-hearted girl felt like such a threat. The afternoon sun was blazing over the 𝐒𝐞𝐫𝐞𝐭 University Stadium. The bleachers were packed with students, scouts, and fans, the air thick with the smell of popcorn and the roar of the crowd. Inside the locker room, the atmosphere was suffocatingly tense. Coach Namjoon slapped his clipboard against the wall one last time. Namjoon, this isn't just a game, it's Seoul National. If you play for yourselves, you lose. If you play for the jersey, you win. Meet me at the dugout in 5. As the coach stepped out, the heavy metal door creaked open again. YRN walked in, looking small but determined in her oversized 𝐒𝐞𝐫𝐞𝐭 jacket. The players, including a brooding Jungkook and a focused Taehyung, turned to look at her. YN, I know I'm not supposed to be in here, but I couldn't let you walk out onto that field without saying this. She walked right into the center of the room, standing between Taehyung and Jungkook. YRN, please, just for today, forget the arcade, forget the office, and forget the rivalry. Play as a team. If you two don't sync up, Seoul National is going to humiliate us. I'm requesting this as your friend, Jungkook, and as your wife, Tate. Jungkook looked away, scoffing, while Taehyung tightened his grip on his glove. Seeing their stubbornness, YN's expression shifted from soft pleading to a sharp, authoritative glare. She crossed her arms over her chest. YRN, firmly, actually no, I'm not requesting. I'm ordering you. You both claim to care about me, right? Then prove it by not making me watch my husband and my friend get crushed because they were too busy ego clashing to catch a ball. If I see a single petty argument on that field, neither of you is getting a word out of me for a month. Is that understood? The locker room went silent. The scary YRN had made an appearance, and even the rest of the baseball team looked intimidated. Jungkook, muttering a month, that's harsh. Mrs. Jerk, Taehyung, sighing, looking at her with a hint of a smile, understood. YRN. As the team began to file out through the tunnel toward the bright light of the field, Circe was waiting near the entrance. She looked elegant even in casual clothes, holding a specialized sports drink. Circe, Tae, wait. She stepped forward, ignoring the rest of the team. I wanted to wish you luck. I know how much this means to you. You're going to be the hero of the game. I just know it. Jungkook, walking right behind Taehyung, couldn't resist the urge to stir the pot. Jungkook, wow, look at that. The hero has his personal assistant waiting in the wings. Does this drink come with a promotion? Or do you have to win the game first to get a raise, Kim? He let out a sharp, mocking laugh, expecting Taehyung to snap back or grab his collar like usual. Circe's face fell, her grip tightening on the bottle as she looked embarrassed. Taehyung paused. He looked at Jungkook's taunting face, then at Circe's hurt expression. He felt the anger rising, but then he remembered YN's order in the locker room. A month of silence. Without saying a word to Jungkook, Taehyung took the drink from Circe with a polite, neutral nod. Taehyung, thanks Circe. I appreciate the support. He didn't acknowledge Jungkook's existence. He didn't fire back. He simply kept walking toward the field, his eyes fixed on the pitcher's mound. Jungkook's smirk faded. He looked confused, like a kid who had thrown a punch and hit nothing but air. Jungkook, to himself, what the? Since when did he become a monk? He adjusted his helmet and followed Taehyung out, the roaring crowd, greeting them as they stepped onto the diamond to face the champions. Just before the big game started, everything was a mess. The 𝐒𝐞𝐫𝐞𝐭 team was warming up, and Annie was walking near the dugout. Suddenly, she tripped over a bag on the ground. She fell right toward Coach Namjoon, who was carrying a tray of coffee and a pile of clipboards. Annie, oh no, I am so sorry. She tried to grab something to stay standing, but she accidentally knocked the clipboards out of Namjoon's hand. Coach Namjoon, whoa, it's okay, I'll catch them. Namjoon jumped to save the boards, but his elbow hit the coffee tray. He saved the coffee, but his sunglasses slipped off his face and fell plop, right into one of the cups. Annie, I'll get them. Annie leaned down at the same time Namjoon did. Thwack. Their foreheads collided with a sound like two bowling balls hitting each other. Coach Namjoon, ouch. Okay. That was a solid hit. You should be on the defensive line, he chuckled, rubbing his head, but as he tried to stand up, his shoelace, which had somehow come untied during the collision, got caught in the strap of Annie's backpack. Annie, wait, we're stuck. Coach, I think we're fused together. She started hopping on one foot to keep her balance, causing Namjoon to stumble along with her in a weird, clumsy dance right in front of the dugout. The 𝐒𝐞𝐫𝐞 players stopped to stare, and even Jungkook paused his stretches to watch the disaster. YN, covering her face with her hand, I can't take them anywhere. Rex, if we don't move now, they're going to take down the entire stadium structure. YN and Rex sprinted over. Rex grabbed Annie by the waist and lifted her slightly to untangle the lace from her bag, while YN grabbed the coffee tray from the wobbling coach. YN, I am so sorry, coach. Annie, move. Now. Annie, but his glasses are still caffeinated. Rex, forget the glasses. We need to go before the umpire sees this. Rex practically dragged a flustered Annie away by her backpack straps, while YN handed the coffee tray back to a dizzy-looking Namjoon. Coach Namjoon, thanks. Tell your friend she has a very powerful forehead. The atmosphere at the 𝐒𝐞𝐫𝐞 University Stadium was electric. The clash between 𝐒𝐞𝐫𝐞 and Seoul National was living up to every bit of the hype. In the front row, YN sat sandwiched between Rex and Annie, her eyes glued to the pitcher's mound where Taehyung stood, looking like a focused warrior. Rex, your husband is a fantastic player. YN, his form is perfect. Annie, pouting and letting out a fake cry. Our college could never win against 𝐒𝐞𝐫𝐞, and definitely not against Seoul National. We're so outclassed. Rex, we badly need a qualified baseball team for our college as well. Maybe we should recruit some of these guys. YN, hushing them both without looking away. Let me watch my husband play. He's about to pitch. Annie, wait. YN, what if our college team and 𝐒𝐞𝐫𝐞 played a match against each other? Who would you support? YN, without a second of hesitation, obviously my husband's team. Loyalty first. The game was intense. For the first time, the impossible happened. Taehyung and Jungkook were playing as a true team. When a high fly ball was hit toward the gap, Jungkook sprinted with everything he had, diving to make the catch and immediately firing a rocket back to Taehyung at the mound to tag out a runner. They didn't exchange words, just a sharp, respectful nod. They knew YN was watching, and neither wanted to face the 1-month silence penalty she had threatened. Team 𝐒𝐞𝐫𝐞 was showing their best performance in years. During the final innings, it was Taehyung's turn at bat. He swung with a thunderous crack, sending the ball soaring over the fence for a spectacular home run. As he rounded the bases, Taehyung slowed down near the front row. He looked directly toward YN, winking and blowing a playful kiss her way with a triumphant grin. Behind YN, sitting in the second row, Circe felt her heart skip a beat. Because she was sitting directly in Taehyung's line of sight, she was certain the gesture was meant for her. Circe, to herself, her face flushing, he did it. He's showing everyone that I'm the one he's playing for. Her expectations began to grow, her mind already spinning fantasies of a post-game celebration alone with him. The umpire's voice echoed through the stadium. Strike 3, game over. The 𝐒𝐞𝐫𝐞 bleachers erupted in a deafening roar. They had done it. They had defeated the champions. The players began to pour onto the field to celebrate. Circe stood up immediately, her eyes shining. She began to push through the crowd, hurrying toward the railing. She wanted to be the first one to reach Taehyung, to tell him how amazing he was, and finally claim that treat he had promised. But she wasn't fast enough. Before Circe could even reach the stairs, YN had already hopped over the low partition of the front row. She ran across the grass like a lightning bolt, her hair flying behind her. Taehyung saw her coming. He dropped his glove and opened his arms wide. Circe froze in her tracks, her hand resting on the cold metal railing. She witnessed something she had never imagined in her worst nightmare. Taehyung caught YN mid-run, hugging her so tightly that her feet left the ground. He spun her around in a dizzying circle, his deep laughter audible even over the cheering crowd. Then, without a care for the thousands of people watching or the cameras on the big screen, he leaned down and kissed her passionately, his hand cradling the back of her head as if she were the only person in the world. The stadium's soft but intense sunlight seemed to dim for Circe as the reality crashed down on her. The secret wife wasn't a secret anymore, and she certainly wasn't just a responsibility.